Oh, what a week it has been. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is March 1st. March has begun, and this week on Stand Up, I want to say the last week has been great. Thank you so much for the feedback on all of the guest interviews that I've done, obviously the news segments, but I gotta say, I mean, I'm biased, but my favorite text came from my mommy. She's a big fan of the podcast, and she said, fantastic interview with Steve Cole. I enjoyed every minute of it. And I said, really, Mom? That is so great to hear. That's the one I worked so hard on and taped while I was up visiting you and Dad. She said, I remember I learned so much from your podcast. Mom, thank you. I do too. What a great gig I have to get to interview all these brilliant people that I've talked to this week, including Eric Siegel, who was fantastic, of course. Yesterday, I dropped that as a bonus episode, and also had this great conversation with Anna Marie Cox. Many of you reached out to me to tell me how much you appreciated that yesterday. Of course, I just mentioned Steve Cole on his new book, a special episode I dropped midweek on Wednesday. I also spoke with Admiral James Stavridis about his new book. Tuesday was Dr. Jason Johnson, who I haven't talked to in so long. Great conversation with him. And as always, J.L. Covan, who helped us kick off the week. It's been a great week here, and I'm excited to welcome a couple of new subscribers and a few people also upgrading their subscription. So from that standpoint as well, always happy when we get new members of the community. Thanks to all of you who joined me at last night's Hangout. Always a great time, and really excited to share my conversation with Christian Finnegan, Ophira, Eisenberg on today's episode. That begins at, of course, they're both going to join me along with J.L. Covan, John Carroll, and Garrett Sever on stage Saturday the 23rd in Las Vegas. Hope to see you at Pod Jam. Tickets, of course, available in the show links. But now it's time to get to the news. I've got your headlines for you. You like the headlines? You like the news segment? The segment is good, yes? You like it? Let me know. Here's what I've got for you. First and foremost, a chaotic scene, horrible scene in Gaza in the Middle East. More than 100 people were killed yesterday after a crowd converged on a rare humanitarian aid convoy in Gaza City. It triggered a chaotic incident that Palestinian officials and eyewitnesses blamed on Israeli gunfire and Israeli officials blamed on a stampede. But more than 700 Palestinians were wounded, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, as the death toll in the enclave surged past 30,000. Details of the incident still unclear, according to the Washington Post. Most critically, what had caused such a heavy human toll underscored the desperate plight of Gaza's civilians and further complicated delicate international efforts to secure a ceasefire. And President Biden expressed skepticism Thursday that a ceasefire agreement could be struck in the Israeli-Hamas war by Monday, as he'd hoped for that would happen. He had separate calls Thursday with the Emir of Qatar and the Egyptian president to discuss hostage talks and the overall situation in Gaza. The White House now exploring the possibility of airdropping aid from U.S. military planes into Gaza as deliveries by land have become increasingly difficult. That's what's happening, at least a little bit of it in the Middle East. And Moscow President Putin of Russia said that the West faced the prospect of nuclear conflict if it intervened more directly in the war in Ukraine, using an annual speech to a nation on Thursday to escalate his threats against Europe and the United States. So I think I mentioned that during yesterday's segment, but maybe you didn't hear it. So that's what Vladimir Putin is saying, and Sweden has now responded to Russian threats over NATO membership. The Prime Minister of Sweden called the Russian embassy's response to their joining NATO that it was the same when Finland joined. It is well known that Russia does not like the fact that both Sweden and Finland will become NATO members, but it is up to us to decide. Noted that Sweden is already experiencing cyber attacks and attempts at influence from Russia, but he added that the authorities are prepared and they can see what the Russians are doing. So really interesting developments there. Let's come back home where a government shutdown suddenly appears very unlikely. The House on yesterday, passed a short-term funding bill to avert partial government shutdown by this weekend, sent it to the Senate to buy Congress more time and fund the government. The bill passed 320 to 99. The Senate could take it up as early as this afternoon ahead of Friday night deadline to keep the government open. In Texas, also yesterday in Texas, a federal judge blocked a new Texas law that would give broad powers to arrest migrants suspected of illegally entering the U.S., dealing a victory to the Biden administration with a broad rejection of Republican Governor Greg Abbott's immigration enforcement efforts. And And both President Biden and the disgraced former president were at the border yesterday, staking out ground on a key issue for this presidential election campaign. Both Biden and Trump visited two border communities a few hundred miles apart that have been grappling with large numbers of migrants seeking asylum. President Biden went to Brownsville and Trump went to Eagle Pass. NPR writes the trip was heavy on symbolism and short on new ideas to tackle the issue. Trump sought to paint a picture of controlled crime and violence, which he blamed on Biden, while Biden, he had agreed to a get-tough bill, blaming Trump and Republican allies in Congress for blocking it. In fact, President Biden invited disgraced former President Trump to work together to lobby Congress on an immigration bill as both candidates visited the border, knowing that he won't. But he made a direct appeal to Trump, asking the former president to join him in telling Congress to pass the bill, which was tanked after Trump rallied his allies in Congress to kill it. But a smart play for President Biden at the border yesterday. What else can I tell you here? How about this one? A lawsuit worth watching. The co-founders of disgraced former President Donald Trump's media company filed a lawsuit Wednesday claiming that Trump and other leaders had schemed to deprive them of a stake in the company that could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Really? You think Trump schemed someone out of money? Someone he was doing business with? Sounds fishy to me. And on the latest inflation data, inflation rose in line with expectations in January, according to an important gauge the Federal Reserve uses to deliberately cut interest rates. We'll see what happens with that. I like this story coming out of Berlin, where environmental activists are occupying a forest to close Tesla's factory there. They want to stop the electric vehicle maker's German expansion plans and protect local groundwater. So we'll see what happens with the protesters in the trees in that Berlin forest. And yesterday, Burger King took a shot at fast food rival Wendy's after the restaurant chain made news with rumors of controversial price surging. Burger King posted on Twitter, "The only thing surging at BK is the fire. We don't believe in charging people more when they're hungry. Free Whopper or Impossible Whopper with a $3 purchase in the BK app through Friday." So they're using Wendy's controversial dynamic pricing or surge pricing, which is when the price of a product or service fluctuates according to demand or other factors, like calling an Uber ride during rush hour or a highly attended event. Anyway, Burger King took a shot at Wendy's after it's been widely reported that Wendy's is going to roll out this type of pricing sometime next year. All right. Well, those are your headlines. Let's get to some of the sound that I've gathered you from this last news cycle. Like I said, President Biden and the disgraced former president were at the southern border, and President Biden made the disgraced former president an offer that he can refuse.
I understand my predecessors in Eagle Pass today. So here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with this issue, instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you, in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan border security bill. We can do it together. You know and I know it's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen. So instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done? Let's remember who the heck we work for. We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people.
Well, there you go. That's the current president. And here is the last guy also at the border, not quite as eloquent and super racist.
Because everybody I speak to says how horrible it is. Nobody can explain to me how allowing millions of people from places unknown, from countries unknown, who don't speak languages. We have languages coming into our country. We have nobody that even speaks those languages. They're truly foreign languages. Nobody speaks them.
Huh? And now here's President Biden again.
And folks here in Brownsville and all along the border know that. We need to have their backs, your backs. And I want the people to understand clearly what happened here. This bill was in the United States Senate. It was on its way to being passed. Then it was derailed by rank-and-file politics, partisan politics. The U.S. Senate needs to reconsider this bill, and those senators who oppose it need to set politics aside and pass it on merits, not on whether it's going to benefit one party or benefit the other party. It's about whether it benefits the American people.
And then here's the horrible guy calling Gavin Newsom a new name.
And we weren't promising free education, free medical, free everything. I mean, all the promises that are made, no wonder they come. I mean, you look at what this Governor Newsom from California, isn't that his name, Newsom?
Yeah.
What he's done to California is unbelievable. People are pouring.
I mean, he sits around and thinks of those names. Newsom. Okay. So those are the two guys that are running for president. Of course, there is only one choice, but still too many people consider the last guy, which is just so frightening. Of course, here is Fox News' Neil Cavuto cutting into Trump's press conference to fact-check him.
All right, we'll continue to monitor this. Just one slight thing I just wanted to add, because when you hear it, and you heard it from Donald Trump about the 2020 election, and it got millions of more votes, in fact, he did get millions of more votes, he still lost that election. That is not in doubt anymore. That's not being debated anymore. But I didn't want to get off topic too much. I do want.
All right. Thank you for the fact check, Neil Cavuto. Here's a former acting director of ICE on CNN talking about what is really needed to secure the border.
So after scuttling that bipartisan agreement that was brokered in the Senate between Democrats, Republicans, and the White House, former President Trump and a lot of his allies in the House, they've adhered to a talking point saying that, listen, you don't even really need new legislation to solve the border crisis. The Border Patrol Union, I should mention, that supports Trump actually disagrees with that talking point. Do you think that new laws are needed to fix what we're seeing?
Brianna, you absolutely need congressional action to fix this crisis. That is a fundamental truth, and anybody who says that it can be done with, a snap of the finger or a wave of a magic wand is lying to their constituents. At a minimum, there needs to be massive surge of resources into our asylum system to handle the flows, or you need to look at something like the Senate bill that fundamentally changed the laws. But it is a completely false narrative to suggest that President Biden could fix this, with just a blink of an eye.
For whatever reason, the former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is making the media rounds, and he was on MSNBC yesterday, and I wanted to play for you his analysis about the disgraced former president's fascination with Vladimir Putin. Here is the former Prime Minister of Australia.
The Trump fascination with Putin is a very creepy one, and it was palpable. I mean, people who have been with Trump and Putin, and indeed people who saw him with Putin at that Helsinki conference will see the same thing. He has a fascination with Putin. He's in awe of Putin, probably admires him, probably wishes he could be as omnipotent in America as Putin is in Russia. But it's very disconcerting when you see the leader of the free world being so interested in tyrants. And of course, it's not just Putin. I mean, look at his bromance with Kim Jong-un. How improbable was that? Effectively exchanging what I think he described as love letters.
All right. Well done. Now, speaking of creepy, here is the House Speaker and Christian nationalist Mike Johnson being asked by a reporter yesterday if he believes discarding embryos is murder. Johnson dodges, dips, ducks, dives, and then dodges again, but he doesn't answer it.
IVF. Do you favor a bill to protect IVF, and do you believe discarding embryos is murder?
Look, I believe in the sanctity of every human life. I always have. And because of that, I support IVF and its availability. If you look at the statistics, it's really an amazing thing. Since the technology became available in, I think, the 70s, maybe the mid-70s, an estimated 8 million births in the U.S. Have been brought about because of that technology. Kelly and I have many close friends who have had trouble with fertility issues, and they've had beautiful families as a result of IVF. And so it needs to be readily available. It needs to be something that every American supports, and it needs to be handled in an ethical manner. So we'll continue to support that. I don't think there's a single person in the Republican conference who disagrees with that statement, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, but it's something I think we ought to support.
The question is, of course, does he support legislation to protect IVF from the Christian nationalist Supreme Courts like the one in Alabama? That we haven't gotten an answer yet on. And here is Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. He was on MSNBC yesterday warning about the danger that is posed to Ukraine, who's on the precipice of losing the war.
They just don't have enough ammunition now either, nor the long-range missiles that are now being promised. They still don't have the F-16s. The pipeline is unreasonably slow, correct? And now it's all stalled in Congress.
Well, Ukraine is on the precipice of losing this war. Let's just be very clear about that. Europe is scrambling to try to build up the kind of capacity, especially with respect to ammunition, that Ukraine currently relies on the United States for, but they cannot build that capacity by this spring and by this summer. The only way that we stop Putin from marching further into Ukraine, perhaps all the way to and through Kyiv, is to pass the bipartisan Ukraine supplemental bill, which has passed the Senate with 70 votes and is pending before the House of Representatives. It has the votes to pass the House of Representatives. It is just Speaker Johnson who is going to make a decision in the next couple days or weeks as to whether he wants to go down in history as the American leader who handed Ukraine to the Russians. And we do not have 2 more months. We just don't. On an average day, Ukraine is firing 20% of the rounds of ammunition that Russia is. Pretty soon, they will not be able to intercept any of the rockets that are coming for Ukrainian cities. It is in our interest as a nation to stop Putin here so we don't have to fight him somewhere else. And this decision is in the hands of one man, Speaker Mike Johnson.
Wow. Very dramatic. There you go. That's Senator Chris Murphy on MSNBC. And finally, let's end with a laugh brought to us by Stephen Colbert and his writers at CBS The Late Show.
Everybody's heard this big news from Washington, D.C. today because this just happened this afternoon, right? Just a little while ago, Mitch McConnell announced he will step down as the Senate's Republican leader. But is this true? He's not stepping down till November because at 82, that's how long it takes him to step. McConnell made his announcement on the Senate floor and then took a fond shamble down memory lane.
My career in the United States Senate began amidst the Reagan Revolution. The truth is, when I got here, I was just happy if anybody remembered my name. President Reagan called me Mitch O'Donnell. Close enough, I thought.
Well, that's very big of you, bitch O'Dumbnuts. It's not very nice. That's not very nice. The smart choice. Yesterday, both parties held their primaries in the great state of Michigan. And on the Democratic... Yeah! Yes, thank you. And on the Democratic side, Biden won with 81% of the vote. 81%. 1% for every year he's been alive. And God help us, that joke works. Coming in second place behind Biden was Uncommitted with 13.3%. Now, this was the result of an organized campaign to register discontent about Biden's policies on Israel and was designed to be a warning from progressives, young voters, and Arab American Democrats. So these are people who previously supported Biden, just wanted to send him a message to change his behavior. It's like how you would tell a child, you can't have dessert until you clean your room and figure out who gets Jerusalem. The next highest vote getter was Marianne Williamson, who got 3%, even though she had already dropped out of the race. That showing inspired her to unsuspend her campaign today. I mean, that's the ultimate proof that she's an optimist. She always sees the glass as 3% full.
All right, there you go, Stephen Colbert with some laughs, and now it's time to have some more laughs because I've got Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg joining me. They will both be joining me on stage along with J.L. Colvin, Garrett Sever, John Carroll, and maybe some more special guests, who knows, in Las Vegas on March 23rd. We'll be taping podcasts all day. It's Pod Jam. Get your tickets now. Of course, listen to Ophira's podcast, Parenting is Just a Joke. She'll be taping that out there with us. And, of course, Christian's as well, his newsletter, I should say. New music for olds. Watch their stand-up specials and subscribe to their stuff and support them. It's time for Finnegan, which is fun as it always is today. Let's do it. Ophira, Christian, I've missed you the last couple of weeks. I'm glad we could get the band back together. How are you?
Miss you too. Good. I'm good.
Yeah, missed you. That's an interesting word for ignoring us. Not telling us you're going on vacation. It didn't seem like you were missing us when you were on the ski slopes with your family. but I'm sure every minute he was just like, "What's Ophira? What are Ophira and Christian doing right now?" I'm sure it was
my
really
Instagrams are not in current time. Okay, I like cherry pick from my amazing life and put things out at different times. So you don't know where I was.
That's true. What?
I find that misleading. I don't like when people do that.
They do that. Oh yeah, I find it amazing too. It's always like, did you have because sometimes you talk to someone and you just saw their Instagram, you're like, how was Florida? And they're like, that was in October.
Right, but you shouldn't actually post a picture of you in a place that you're not in. I think right now.
I just a few weeks ago, I texted Ophira and I said, "How was New Year's Eve 2019?" She had little glasses on. She had the fake glasses on.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I was like, I was like, that was last week.
I saw this problem by just never posting.
I want you to post. I love both of you. No, please post. Post away. For example, one time you posted, we were talking before we started here, and about which pens you like to use, and a certain pen company sent you a whole box of them, and I feel like that doesn't happen as much anymore. But still, you got a big win. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't want to say which pen company it was, but it's a company that focuses on one ball, not multi-ball. A solitary ball is.
The uni of balls.
A uni. It's a uni. It's the Lance Armstrong of pens. Because he has one testicle. You see.
They sent you a box.
It would be amazing if he was approached to.
Oh my God, that would be the greatest fucking endorsement deal ever. It's Lance Armstrong and Tom Green for Uniball.
Oh, Tom Green.
But yeah, it wasn't even like I responded to a thread where people were talking about favorite pens, and like 3 weeks later, somebody DM'd me and was like, "Hey, what's your address? We'd like to send you a pen or something." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then 3 weeks later, I had like a handwritten note from like the president of Uniball being like, thank you and enjoy these. And he sent me like 20 fucking pens. It's nuts. In fact, I think I even have a swag Uniball pad of paper here.
Wow.
In front of me.
They even sent you a pad. That is an impressive thing.
Jealous much?
Well, you're an influential.
I will tell you one cool thing I got. Can I tell you one cool thing I once got from a tweet? Now, if you remember, during the COVID shutdown pandemic, there were a lot of releases of movies stopped happening, right? Because there was no movie theaters to release movies. I mean, now there's even less movie theaters. But remember when there was just like, oh my God, no one's going to the movies.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was all these releases planned with swag from companies, and they bought it all and they had nothing to do with it. So I had interviewed a couple people. Oh my God, I can't remember. Was it called Palm Springs? That
oh yeah, Andy Samberg and Kristen Milotti. Yeah,
I interviewed Kristen Milotti, and they were like, "Great, can we send you a thing?" And they sent me a pizza slice floaty for a pool.
Oh, fun!
Yeah,
that seems bad. That seems unethical.
Clearly not aware that you live in New York City, but.
You gave them.
We literally blew it up, and it just was in our living room for a while.
So if you give a movie a certain film coverage, they're going to send you swag. It seems unethical that you did that. You only interviewed them.
I complimented the movie Dune, and they sent me a giant worm.
I saved an airplane, and they sent me a hairbrush.
That's ridiculous.
I heard that story.
That's ridiculous.
I heard that story.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So let's, I want to ask you both about Richard Lewis. Comedian Richard Lewis died. He was 76 years old. He was a legend. Everybody knew him. And I interviewed him once at Sirius. He was really nice, just as I thought he would be. Did either of you know him or work with him ever?
I never worked with him. I just thought he was, I just thought he was great, and like just an amazing long career. And I even liked him on Curb. I just thought I was like, oh, Richard Lewis, always. And I've heard nothing but nice things about him. So there you go. That's all I have.
He was the first dude I ever middled for.
Oh no!
At like a real club, like at like a club that you would be proud, like at an improv. The West Palm Improv.
Oh, it's a great club.
I may have mentioned this story.
That's not a club you should be proud.
Probably not.
That's a great club. I love performing at that.
It's a great club.
It was a massive club. But yeah, and he was, on the wagon, of course, and would go, I may have told the story before, so I apologize. He would go back to his hotel in between shows. Like he would get off stage from the first show, go back to his hotel, and then he would show up right before his set for the second show. And I was on stage and I had maybe, if I was doing 25 minutes, I probably had 24 and a half minutes of material. Like I had literally enough to do that I felt okay about in a road crowd. And I don't know what happened, if they got stuck behind train, like a train or whatever, but I went into my closer and then I see from the back of the room, the manager making the stretch sign.
Oh no.
And I then had to go into like awkward open mic crowd work after my closer. And it was probably 4 minutes at the most, but every one of those minutes had 60 full seconds in it.
We've actually got the audio of it now. Let's take a listen.
Awesome.
That would be so awesome.
I hear silence.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the crowds. Yeah, apparently they did my crowd.
Was he nice to you? Did he say anything to you? Did you have a meal with him?
Honestly, we had like zero interaction.
Oh.
My wife actually knows him a little better because she used to be the PR marketing director at a club in New York that he would play, and she would take him around and do like morning media and radio and stuff.
Sure.
And was very nice. The only thing I remember about Richard Lewis is he gave his like intro to the club, and it was handwritten on a legal pad, and it looked like a ransom note. And it was it was every credit. Like it was the kind of credits that you would expect Richard Lewis to write out. Like I think that was kind of his persona, the just overthinker. And but the guy's a legend. I don't really have any. It was never my like one of the guys that got me into doing comedy. It was sort of just a dude doing comedy. But like, obviously, probably close to being on a Mount Rushmore for our generation.
That's a good story. That's all good stuff about him then. By the way,
tailed off at the end, but I appreciate your pretending.
Now, do you feel like this is just a general question about your idea of lifespan? Are you going, oh my God, 76, that's tragic. He died young. Or are you like, 76, good life?
Oh yeah. I'd take 76. If you offered it to me right now, because I like my life and I like living. If the wager was like, yeah, I'll be like, yeah, I'll take that. My dad
how many good times are coming after 76?
Wow.
Maybe a lot. How dare you? My dad.
That's when I started taking dance classes. No.
I last weekend, the reason I didn't call you is because I was skiing with my dad, who's still ripping it up. Now, I'm not going to say he's like psyched and happy a lot of the rest of the time, but those times he certainly loved skiing that day. That was awesome. He'll be 80 in July.
So, that's amazing.
I'd take it.
That's amazing.
I'm saying I'd take it. 76 years old. And
yeah, I guess it depends on the quality of your life.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
I mean, it's and I don't see myself without radical changes being like skiing at 80.
Oh, I'm pulling you along, buddy. So what do you think about, I just wanted to say one more thing is I love the tributes that everybody's pouring out to him. They seemed really overwhelmingly just wonderful. I've seen some really interesting clips, including one when he was in high school somehow on candid camera, which is a brilliant moment that you didn't even know he was just a real moment. Anyway, I always love that when the tributes pour out and they're so heartfelt. It wasn't a tragic death, like say a Robin Williams or something like that. So I thought that was nice.
Right.
I think that's nice. That's all I'm saying. Let's talk about the other comedy story that I want to ask you guys about, which is that a bunch of comedians that we all know and have known for years were canceled off of a gig in a comedy club out in Seattle. Seattle Comedy Club cancels 4 comedians because of their progressive values. They basically wrote a letter and posted it, the comedy club owner, saying that these comedians basically didn't align with the values of the community. And there's been a lot of talk about it. It's really interesting, I think important, and I really was excited to ask both of you what you thought of it. They booked these comedians. They knew what they did, and then there was some reaction from the communities that we don't like those guys. We don't want them performing here, and then they canceled them all. With I don't know if they paid them or with notice or what, but Ophira, what are your thoughts? What are you hearing? What's the scuttlebutt in the comedy community?
I haven't heard any scuttle. I do know that it's sort of, there was a lot of chatter recently about Shane Gillis hosting SNL.
Right.
Because
sure.
This was right. And I feel like it's related. This is a comic that was allegedly, or he was fired from SNL, I would say. And he was fired. Why? For supposedly, I don't know the exact comics, but making racist, homophobic, transphobic jokes.
I mean, the main clip was like an old podcast where they were talking about like Asian, and he was kind of doing that very 1980s, the L's and the R's, like Asian kind of thing. And, that was the sort of one that was going viral.
So, and then he's invited back and he does the monologue. He does whatever you think about it is a whole other thing. But there was about millions of people commenting on this because Shane Gillis is very internet famous. And some of the comments were like, see, comedy's back. And it was referring to not the greatest part of how you might interpret this.
Which part is that?
So what do you mean?
Well, just that people are like, yeah, see, you can say what you want. Comedy's back.
Right.
I don't know, man. I mean, I only saw the monologue, but it's like, I actually thought it was pretty good. I mean, I know a lot of people hated it, and it's like, it's just, why can't something just, everything has to have, everybody has to have a fucking take. Everybody has to have a fucking take. Just, and it's like, yes, and I can make the argument that like, okay, you shouldn't talk about mental disabilities, but it's like, I guarantee you a lot of the people who were complaining about it probably have done no volunteering for people with mental disabilities and have no experience of what living with people who have disabilities is like. Yeah. And I think if you listen to Seth, I mean, you could say he's kind of trying to have it both ways. Like, oh, my family, we have mentally disabled people in our family. Therefore, I can tell these jokes. I mean, it's a little bit trying to have your cake and eat it too. But it's like, what do you think people joke about in their private lives? Like the things that are stressful, the things that are extreme, the things that are weird. It just, again, and I don't even think anybody gives a shit about Shane Gillis. I don't think anybody cares about Shane Gillis. I don't think anybody cares about Dylan Mulvaney. I don't think anybody cares about any of these people. They are content. They are reduced. Everyone is reduced to content. And it's just like, no one gives
a brand ambassador. I call them a brand ambassador.
Yeah. Okay? But it's just like, you are fodder for me to advertise to people online what kind of person I am, whether I am pro Shane Gillis or anti Shane Gillis. You are completely just ammunition for me to make whatever points I want to make, and how it affects you is kind of, I don't give a fuck, really. But. So
with the community responding to these Seattle comics, I would just I'd like to know, honestly, this is I find it very interesting because I feel like the audience never, I feel like I would love to count on the audience every once in a while to be like, hey, why aren't there more women on this lineup? or just, for example, and then it actually to have a result. But I feel like the audience doesn't ever say anything. They just always go like, I don't like that or I like that. And that's it. But I want to know if it was the community, as it is phrased, came up and said no, or if it was one person who kind of holds the purse strings here or there that didn't like
or
it.
A couple staff members potentially, who
that's what I thought maybe you guys might.
The original sin was booking them in the first place. Like, don't book them. Right. If you don't, you're not a fucking idiot. You know what neighborhood your club is in. You know what kind of people they want. So it's like, once you've booked them, you are on the hook to fucking follow through on that. Like, what you've done pleases no one, and you're going to get the worst of both worlds. Those
and
people who are mad at you will never stop being. Yeah,
and are you just being a lazy booker because you're just like, how many Instagram followers you have? Okay,
yeah.
Like, are you booking for whatever you perceive your people are in the audience live that night, or are you just you're like, I don't know, whatever. They'll bring a crowd. I don't have to do any.
No,
promotion.
I promise you that whoever booked them knows that they fill rooms and they have a big crowd or whatever. And it's like they thought people weren't going to notice or something. I don't know, but it's just like. It's pathetic. And I hate the fact that, after however many years Ophira and I have been on the show, talking about this stuff, that I'm kind of forced into the corner of defending. I mean, not that even I'm not trying to defending as if I was vehemently against these comics. I know them. I know them personally. They're, I get along with them. I can hang out in the green room with them, whatever. But it's like, after so long of being like, all these people do is complain about cancel culture and it's such bullshit. And, you know, it's like, okay, great. Thanks for making their point for them. Like, thanks for literally giving.
Well,
giving them exactly
it's not going to hurt them. All of them. I mean, for example, who was it? Our friend Jim Florentine. He was on Fox News at 8 p.m. with Jesse Waters. So that was the best thing that could have happened to Jim, who I love. I mean, I've known Jim for a long time. Kurt Metzger, one of the comedians that we also know, he said that the venue they got canceled from is in the former Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, of Seattle, location where radical violent activists took over 60 blocks during the Black Lives Matter riots. That's what this conservative article is calling them. By the way, I'm not wording it that way. Anyway, after the death of George Floyd, that's where there were Black Lives Matter protests. And so Kurt went on on Twitter and said, "I'm sorry, but this is too funny not to immediately put on blast. Also, I'm mistaken that this club is Seattle's historic Chaz district. Thank you, George Floyd," he posted on Twitter. So he's thanking George Floyd for being canceled, I guess. That seems classy. That doesn't seem worth the tweet. That doesn't seem worth...
worth the tweet should be an entire
George
segment.
Floyd. Thank you, George Floyd.
The tweet?
Yeah, it's a real weird thing to do and say, and shockingly unsurprising from Kurt, but still.
Progressive. Such a problem with that word. Anyhow.
You have a problem with the word progressive?
Yeah, regressive. It's what should be named.
The progressive ideology should be called regressive, you think?
That's right.
Why do you say that?
Look for Ophira on Jesse Waters tomorrow night at 8 p.m.
You think that progressives are regressive?
Well, I mean, I just feel like the word progressive has been like also owned by people. It's just like you can't own the word progressive.
Yeah.
That starts the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I hate the labels. Always hated the labels. Let's just talk about the issue.
It's literally why I've half quit comedy. I can't with all this. I can't.
Because you feel canceled a lot?
Exactly, because people won't let me talk shit about about you know who. I don't know.
What? Someone has a joke right now. Oh, it's so bad that I can't remember who it is. It's a guy. It's very funny about being in like somewhere in North Dakota and him saying like to the crowd, like, "Are there any Jews here?" And someone going like, "No, go for it."
Ah!
Yikes.
Any thoughts on Jon Stewart's return? Speaking of Jews. Oh, Ophira's one. Oh. Oops, forgot we had one here.
So I forget if I told you this, but the day that Trevor Noah said that he was going to not host the Daily Show anymore, my husband, Jonathan Bayless, turned to me and said, "Jon Stewart will be coming back." And I said, "No, are you kidding me?" And he was right.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
I'm not sure if Jon Stewart would have come back if he had been able to continue his show with Apple, but he was not able to because he wanted to criticize China, and Apple's like, "Could you not?" And he was like, "I think I will." And then that's my understanding of what happened there. And then, you know, he always could have come back to the Daily Show and done a day at a time.
Sure.
But yeah, he's back.
Well,
Christian.
You know, you can tell that he's enjoying, you know, the Jon Stewart mugging, you know what I mean? Which
oh yeah.
It's a thing, and I had kind of gotten a little done with it by the time he left the Daily Show.
I don't know if I know what you mean exactly. I'm sorry,
but like just the faces and the sort of like, you know, like all the sort of really over
double takes,
hamming up, the double takes, and the sort of tags on tags on tags, and sort of just the you know when you see a comic just like, all right, come on, move it along. Can we get to the next bit, please? Like, it's just a little bit kind of smelling his own farts. But after a bunch of years, like, it is fun to see him again. Like, he's really good at it. You know, I will tell you, as the owner of an elderly dog, I did not need a 4-minute tearful tribute to his recently deceased pet. That did not go over great in this house.
Everybody was saying, "Watch this." And I said, a couple people even sent it directly and said, "You should watch this." And I said to every one of them, No, I don't want to.
No.
Yeah.
Just like, you know what else I didn't want to watch? But I did watch, not to change gears really hard, but the guy set himself on fire in protest of Israel in front of the Israeli embassy in
I don't
D.C.
need to see that.
U.S. airman in fatigues walks up, and I watched it. They blurred it out as soon as he went up, but I was absolutely traumatized for the next, 15 minutes. I couldn't do anything. It was horrifying. Didn't need to watch that either. Things you don't need to watch.
Oh, God, no. No, God, no.
I'll take your word for it.
But, this is, so I love Jon Stewart.
You're welcome.
I was excited to also watch him back on The Daily Show. But if I were to zoom out, as I did when I first heard the news, I was like, this is such a failure. Just in terms of, they passed the baton to a black comedian, and then instead of finding whoever's going to be their successor, they go, oh, let's just go. This is our new move back to where we started. I mean, I feel like we're just.
It's like when a store starts like selling things 2 for $1. It's like, oh, okay, you're in the end cycle here. like there's no way to go back to not Jon Stewart. I mean, granted, he's only there 1 day a week.
That's
how hard is it for the people who have to host the other 4 days?
Oh my God!
2 days a week. Yeah, it's.
I'll defend,
to me, it's a sign that the show is going to wind down once he's done.
Yeah,
I'll defend the show, the network, and John by saying he's only there once a week, and I bet you it's like when Louis C.K. said to me when John Mayer was performing at the Comedy Cellar, and I was like, it kind of sucks that he keeps bumping us. And Louis was like, why? And I was like, because he's not even a comic. Why don't I go to one of his concerts and just grab a guitar? Like, what's he doing? And Louis said he's bringing people in here on a Tuesday night that wouldn't be here for you. And I think Jon Stewart's doing that for The Daily Show, keeping it alive. And he's doing it just once a week. And the other hosts are either women or people of color, except for I think Michael Costas. And
but I'm saying they're not. I will say it certainly dovetails better with the people who are still watching cable. You know what I mean? That
is right. Know your audience. You know what? The community spoke.
Yeah, but so much of that show, I bet you, and the money it makes is online. I think. I don't know. I don't even know where to find it.
What is television now other than a viral clip factory?
Yeah, well, those make money. I mean, it's interesting to see John Oliver, the show I work on, they would post the clips of the show the next day. HBO would allow for it, and now HBO is like, no, not till Thursday. Now you can't post clips till Thursday. What did you say, Christian?
I called you a company man.
Yes, that's right. I'm a company man for the company I work for.
What is Stewart's production company? Busboy.
That's right.
Busboy company man. That's you.
Let me ask you about.
Can I get you something, sir, Mr. Stewart, sir? An apple for the teacher.
Comedy Central is. I don't know how much they're paying Jon Stewart, but I also assume they are saving a boatload of money, not just having a daily host, the same person.
Interesting. Yeah,
but they're probably paying a boatload of money to Jon Stewart and Busboy. No?
You never know.
You never know.
Can we make fun of Lauren Boebert, or should we not? Because she's having a family struggle. Senator John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, says, leave her alone. How dare you? It's a personal family struggle. Her son is in all kinds of trouble. Credit card scams. He's impregnated. I don't know who writes impregnated. I'm reading it. A 15-year-old. He's been charged with 5 felonies. It's not going good for this boy. And, his mom is a controversial congresswoman, Lauren Boebert. Are we not allowed to make fun and make jokes and criticize this personal family drama?
No, we're allowed.
There's a ruling, folks.
We've got it. You heard it here. So go ahead, Ben. He and his friends are accused of breaking into several cars in Colorado to steal wallets and credit cards that we use for purchases at local gas stations, Starbucks, McDonald's, online stores.
Starbucks? I mean, I don't know if you've been into a Starbucks recently. Pretty easy to steal something.
Oh,
not a coffee, but they're all the protein drink. What do you want? What are you looking for?
Or whatever.
Yeah.
You're saying you don't even need to steal someone's wallet to pay for it. Just take it.
Take it.
What an idiot.
Anarchy, man. I think that like if Lauren Boebert was just like, Congressperson X, if she was just some anonymous congressperson,
this is why.
I think people would kind of like be like, oh, maybe this is dicey or whatever.
Yeah.
But it so falls in line with her trash between her and her ex-husband and everything. It's just like, okay, like you're clearly like a bad parent on top of all this. Like, and a lot of people I wouldn't say that about. Like, I wouldn't say Joe Biden was a bad parent because Hunter Biden is a fuck up. But it's like the fact that it just seems to be so of a piece with all the other Lauren Boebert sort of scandals. It's hard to not.
Yeah, there's been politicians throughout our lifetime that had similar, like I think Sarah Palin, probably the most notorious family in the reality show age. We actually got to know her kids if you wanted to. And each one of them has had real serious issues, and she got an ugly divorce eventually. But she had said so many terrible things about good people. Many dishonest things.
Well,
that's also what it is. Yeah, it's like
that's what it is.
I mean, she said so often.
If you put yourself out there.
That Obama was palling around with terrorists, insinuating that he was a terrorist, that John McCain had to answer a question from that lady in that infamous moment about Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that kind of thing so often. And Lauren Boebert's in the same vein. And so are plenty of men. Let's not just focus on these women. But it so happens that we're talking about their kids. And
yeah, if you're going to be a fire starter, if you're going to be a bomb thrower and sort of just like you're
putting a target on your whole family.
Just constantly going to the scummiest point of view on every topic, and having no dignity
your own
and
interest,
not treating anyone with respect. Yeah, it's like it's a little hard to then be like, "Hey guys, leave her alone." I mean, I understand why Fetterman is doing that because he's kind of increasingly seems a bit more of like a clown to me, unfortunately. And it's kind of it's free money for like a congressman, because it's like nobody's going to not make fun of Lauren Boebert,
right?
Because John Fetterman told them not to.
Right.
So it's kind of like free for him to be able to do that.
Doesn't it seem like a lot of work to like break into a car first of all, how many people leave their wallet in a car? Like, I just feel like these crimes are very inefficient. It's like the dumbest. You have to, but it's not going to be every car. You got to look for a wallet. Maybe they've left it in a thing like under, not a glove compartment, but another.
It's literally about the breaking in. It's not about what you find in it. No, I mean, I went through a shoplifting phase when I was like 14 or 15.
What?
Really?
For a couple, like a few weeks. I went to Disney World with my friend and his family, and it's just like that is a shoplifter's paradise.
You stole
Disney
while
World,
on vacation with a friend's family, meaning you could have gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
100%.
That is.
You stole Mickey?
He was the instigator. I will say I was kind of the go along with it dude.
Got it,
which
follower.
was the story of my life.
Do you remember what you stole?
No, because that's what I'm saying. It wasn't about that. It was the
think
thrill.
Hard.
Yeah, think about it a little bit more.
What'd you say?
Think hard. What'd you steal?
Think hard. Okay, fine. It was a monogrammed baby doll T-shirt. It said Disney's favorite gal on it. No, I don't know what the fuck it was.
There's video of you doing a smash
like keychains, whatever.
Oh shit! I was gonna make a Harry Potter joke, but that's not Disney. It wouldn't work. Just you with a bunch of wands. Fucked up. But anyway, you're saying it's not about
you really
the thing.
dropped the ball on that.
I really did.
No, it was about the like excitement of doing it. What you get from it is kind of, arbitrary. I think that there's sort of that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm doing it. I got away with it. And so.
Yeah, I will admit I shoplifted as well when I was about that age. But and part of it was that I worked at my parents' business, which was a grocery store. And I would, as a cashier, and I would see kids lifting candy and whatever, chocolate bars and whatever. And sometimes I missed it, and sometimes I caught it, and I would see other people catch it. And I was like, oh my God, it's so easy.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how easy it is.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm going to try it. And I did it with like makeup in a drugstore before everything had a tag on it, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was easy, by the way.
And there was a bit of a thrill, right?
Well,
and there was a bit of a thrill.
There's that. And there's also just the kind of pragmatism of not being able to afford something that might be really high priced, but you really need. Like my friend's daughter, who has the exact same name as my daughter, stole makeup because like stuff for her skin.
Her last name is Dominic?
Yeah, whatever. Because she couldn't.
That's just expensive.
She couldn't afford it, and she needed it for like her skincare, and she didn't want to ask her dad, who has a similar name as me, to for the money. So he just was lifting it.
So weird that these friends are so similar.
Yeah, weird.
I literally just picked up on what you were doing there. I thought I was being really funny by saying her last name is Dominic, because I was thought, and then I realized, like, oh no, I'm actually, by trying to be smarty pants, I'm actually dummy pants. They're smarty pants. I'm dummy.
Last story I wanted to.
Well, I hope she doesn't get scammed in the future. That's all I hope.
It was brutal and fair.
I think you call that karma. That's what that is. That's chickens coming home to roost.
Long range.
Different daughter.
Yeah.
No, same daughter. So just
really?
wanted to confront you. So finally wanted to ask you about this happy story that I shared with you. This guy in California was driving home and he swerved to miss deer and he flew off the cliff, and the car's barreling down the cliff, and somehow he gets ejected through the sunroof, survives, and is now stranded on the side of this cliff for 2 days, and he has since been rescued by the California Highway Patrol Coastal Division Air Operations. This is a happy story. This is a survivor story, and I thought it'd be a fun thing to end on and now make fun of him for. Who would...
What a douche for having a sunroof.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you, hedge fund.
The thing that saved his life.
Hedge
Who
fund.
drives on a highway with a sunroof open?
You can only have a sunroof
Dick.
if you run a hedge fund.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that. It's true.
Who swerves out of the way of an animal in that situation? You're on, you just fucking plow through them. How much driving experience do you know that if it's either, you think about that ahead of time. You drive that road every day, I bet you. I just made that up, last part up.
I don't know. I feel like an animal, depending on what the size of that deer was, that could have killed you.
I'm teaching Julia to drive. And
there are. I don't remember if it's somebody I know or if it was or something my dad knew or if it was just a news story about like a deer leaping out of fear and hooves coming right through the windshield and killing the passenger.
Yeah, come on.
In the
I had that almost, but the hooves missed us. Literally leapt, like we were driving, and a deer fell on our car. It was the craziest thing.
What do you
I'm
mean?
not upstate New York. Fell on our car,
fall,
and I'm telling you,
it
the
jumped.
sheriff.
It's raining deer.
There's a deer falling. Was it in a tree?
The sheriff told me that the deer get all messed up now because hunting season coincides with mating season. So the female deer, of course, this is all sexist, go fucking berserk, and they don't know where to go because they're escaping guns, hunters, and being
non-consensual sex.
Yeah. So they go crazy, and it fell on our car. The hooves went through the front of like the radiator and went through the front of the grill and just pierced the radiator. So the car just and stopped, and the other hoof went like grazed so harsh along the trunk that made a huge dent, almost a hole, and then ricocheted over into the other ongoing traffic, got run over like 3 times. We were just, the car is done. We were like, are you okay?
Wait, and you were in the car when this happened?
Yeah, and the impact was from above. So we didn't even get airbags because the impact was from
where was the deer coming from?
Above. It jumped off a cliff.
I like you just leave that like above.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, how are we supposed to know what kind of a landscape? She's like, it was just in the air, falling from.
It was a cliff. Yeah,
were you injured?
You was in the car. It also went through the sunroof and then landed on Ophira's car.
And nobody helped us. Nobody helped us.
What?
We could not. We had no cell phone range. A guy pulled over, and we said we ran over to him, and he dragged the deer off the highway. And we ran over to him, and we're like, hooray, thank God! And he just went. I was just checking to see if the meat would be any good, and then he got in his car and drove away.
Is this in Canada?
God.
Makes sense.
This is in America. This is upstate New York.
Of course,
and this is you and Jonathan, or
Yeah.
Or oh wow.
And then someone else drove by, and we were like, "We have no cell phone service," and this happened. And they're like, "Well, we have to get home to walk our dogs."
What is
but I'll
wrong
call the
with
sheriff.
people? What?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What town is this horrible town? That town does
Was
not.
your child with you?
The sheriff showed up and helped us. Yeah.
Was your child there?
Was Lucas there?
No. This is before. So this is like, I think it was like 9-10 years ago. But I'll never forget it. A deer fell on our car. Anyway, all of that to say, do not discount what this man did by swerving off a cliff. The fact that the way that he was able to float out of a sunroof is kind of, was it a Tesla? What kind of car are we talking?
I don't know, but it's an amazing.
Do like a tuck, like a diver, like where they twist around, like,
it's an amazing.
Or did like.
Yeah.
He did a full tuck flip. All right, I just got told I have to go bring my daughter. She's going to be driving. Hopefully we won't hit any deer to practice.
No.
But so thank you. That was really fun. I love talking to you guys so much. Well, there they go. Christian and Ophira. Sorry for that abrupt ending, but Julia came in and said, "It's time to go, Dad." And soon she'll have her license, and she won't need me for that here. You guys are the best. Thank you very much for listening. This week, I think I'm going to be dropping a conversation with David Rothkopf for tomorrow. If not Monday, I'll figure it out. But I appreciate all of your support this week. New subscribers, welcome. Thanks for joining me at the Hangout last night. I hope to see you in Las Vegas. Those are the plugs. Except for John Carroll, you are the best. Sing us in and out each and every day. Do it one more time, brother.
Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up.